Hola, ¿cómo estás? Today we're back again. You guys know my series. Today we're going to be talking about why I love Cuban women. Yeah, why I love Cuban women. I haven't did a video for a very long time, so I was like, you know what? Let me show some love to the women. And today we're going to talk about why I love Cuban women. So the first thing I love about Cuban women is how they love to have fun. Cuban women and fun go together like chocolate and me. I love Cuban women because they love to have fun. They love to dance. I'm a big proponent of dancing. I don't even know if I can really dance that good, to be honest with you. We'll see, you know what I'm saying? But I don't even care if I can dance good or not. I still dance, or I try to dance at least. You know, I'm not like break dancing or anything, but you know, I do my little two-step, you know, do my little thing or whatever. But the one thing that I love the most about Cuban women is that they love to dance. Who doesn't like to go out and dance? There's actually some people that don't really like to go out and dance, but I never really met a Cuban girl that's never really liked to go out and dance, especially when I was in Cuba. Dancing is the culture, and women could actually just get up out of anywhere and dance, like, which is crazy because I love that. There's some times where you could be around Cuban women and they just hear the song that they like and they'll get up and dance, and they'll just be like right in the middle of a sentence and they'll start dancing, and then they'll come back to a sentence again and talk to you again. It's really interesting, very spicy. That's why I love Cuban women. Another reason I love Cuban women is the food. Oh God, the Cuban food, right? The ropa, the tostones, the Cuban sandwiches. Like, come on. Cuban women can cook, and I love that cooking is a priority for a lot of Cuban women, especially back in Cuba. When I was there, I had so much food. I actually, this is when I used to eat meat, right? I didn't even have a YouTube channel at this point. I wish I did, because I would have had a lot of footage. But there was so much food, and every time that we had an event, or every time that we just came by a person's house, there was always food. And if there wasn't food, they would get up and cook food. Like, Cuban women can cook. I will give them that. They can cook. And another thing I love about Cuban women, and this is probably just Cuba in general, but Cuban women, for the most part, at least when I was in Cuba, Cuban women are very healthy for the most part, right? Of course, in every country, there's unhealthy people. That's just a given. But the Cuban diet, I feel, is so basic in a way, in a good way, like traditional foods, just the raw cut foods. Of course, Cuba has huge influence of Africa, right? So you have a lot of like beans and rice dishes, and most Cuban women are going to have a rice and beans dish, and they need beans, or they want beans. And I love that because I grew up on rice and beans. So the food is very similar to me. There's not a lot of processed foods. Of course, there's processed foods now, probably way more than what it was when I was there. But all the Cuban girls that I had ever met were just eating good, whole food, rice, beans, fresh chicken. Like, it was interesting to me. And also, with a lot of Cuban women working out and walking and caring about their figure is another thing that I love about Cuban women, because obviously when you live in a hotter country, things are spicy and sexy, right? You want to look good, but also with the walking within the country, because Cuba obviously has cars, right? They have a lot of cars. Actually, I love Cuba because they have cars from like the 50s and 60s and 40s that they just keep up, and they use them for taxis, or they just use them in everyday life, right? And they're really, a lot of people have cars that they're really prideful of. Of course, they have a little bit newer cars, but they had the older cars because of certain relationships that they had with America and different countries at the time, right? But a lot of people actually walk. And so a lot of Cuban women, or a lot of Cuban people in general, but with Cuban women, the culture is walking and being outside and exercising. So that's another thing that I love about Cuban women, is that a lot of Cuban women, not all, but a lot of Cuban women care a lot about their figure. And I actually had a Cuban friend where she was talking about just working out and taking care of her body. She already had her husband, but she said the way to keep him is to work out and keep that body tight. And I said, oh my God, I love you, Cuban women. I love you. But that's another thing that I love about Cuban women. They care about their appearance, but not just for them, but also for their men. Of course, there's ones that don't, but from what I experienced, that's what I know. But one thing that I noticed, and of course it's economics, it changes from country to country, we get all that. But one thing I noticed, actually two things I noticed. One thing is that Cuban women will argue with you up and down, but they will not leave you. Now, of course, there's some Cuban women that will leave you, and there's some Cuban women that are out here for money. But I've met a lot of Cuban women that I know, even to this day, with their men, and they argue, but when they argue, they don't leave, they don't step out. They just argue with them and get through the problem. Like it's a really interesting concept to me, because that's the way it's supposed to be. Maybe not the arguing part, but Cuban women are spicy. What can you say? Maybe not all, but a lot. But they will argue with you and have a conversation with you without having you being penalized for just disagreeing. And I just think that is so interesting, because of course in Latin America that's a very normal thing. It might not be so normal in North America. So that was really interesting to me when I first found out about women that were with men, and they would argue up and down, and I'm like, whoa, this is not going to go good. And the next thing you know, they worked it out. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. Okay. I see you ain't going nowhere, girl. Okay, Cuban girl, I love it. We just gonna get through it, girl. We gonna get through it. Food is very important to Cuban women, and there's always going to be food in the house with the Cuban woman. I don't think that you ever have to worry about that. I know I talked about food before, but I think that there's something pretty amazing. As a man, you got to realize I'm a man. I'm not a woman. So I'm a man coming from a man's perspective. Like when I come home with my homies and it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you just like, I'm getting dropped off, or I'm coming in the house, and you're just like, you know what? I'm going to get up and make you some food. Like that was my experience with Cuban women when I was in Cuba. And I just thought that was an amazing thing, because I'll do the same thing for you. So like, you're not going to take care of your man? And I love that take care of your man aspect, to where it's not a duty, but it's more of, okay, this is the culture, this is how I was raised. Of course, naturally, I should take care of my man if I love him, right? Right, Cuban women? Another thing I love about Cuban women is that Cuban women are very close to their family. I love that about Cuban women, because I think that family means everything. I think that family is very important. I know that always you don't agree with family, or sometimes you disagree, but obviously there's some cultures in the world I feel like that they're not as close to their family, and there's other cultures like my culture where a lot of people are actually close to their family. And so it comes down to, how are we going to keep this family unit together? And like I said about the arguing, but getting past things, and not actually comprehending things. Of course they say it in a different way, but they eventually comprehend it, right? And then you guys get over that problem. Keeping the family together is very important. Like I said before, it doesn't mean all Cuban women do it, but I noticed as far as the culture that family is huge for Cuban women, which leads me to my next thing that I love about Cuban women. And I don't know if I actually love this or not, but a lot of Cuban women are very, very close to their mothers. Super duper close to their mothers. You know what's funny? I didn't really experience how close Cuban women were to their moms, even though I've heard about it, but I didn't really notice it until I was around one of my homegirls, and every little thing she talked to her mom about. Matter of fact, when she met this guy that she liked, she literally was on the date talking to her mom about this guy and like how she liked him on the date. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yo, like, I wouldn't be calling my mom, my dad, like on a date and be like, yo, this girl is like, she's the one, like, she's beautiful, like, she's got the melanin, like, I wouldn't do that. I would wait till maybe like after, or the next day, or maybe before. But like, it was interesting because she literally was on the phone and she was just like telling like, nah, I'm talking to my mom about him right now. He's right in front of me. And then I'm gonna hang up the phone and go back to the date. Another thing I love about Cuban women is if they really, really rock with you, and they're really there for you and not anything else, but they're there for you, they will actually say that they love you, or they'll show high affection to you very, very quickly, right? Which, depending on what part of certain places and certain countries you come from in the Western world, that's not really a normal thing, right? It's not really a normal thing to have a woman be so direct about like what she wants. Well, when it comes to like you, at least, and maybe not wanting something from you, but just you as a human being and as a person, right? And you have to understand that a lot of Cuban women will actually come and talk to you. Like, a lot of Cuban women will just come up and talk to you. When I was in Cuba, I had many women just come talk to me. Of course, all of it wasn't always attractiveness or trying to get with me or whatever, but just the simple fact that they was like, oh, you smelled good today, or oh, you look nice today, or how's your day going? Things like that. that means a lot to men. You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people don't realize that, or they don't think that. They just think that men are these brute creatures without no feelings or whatever. But like, we're human, guys. We're not just robots. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a cold world out here, you know, and men like to be complimented too. Men like things to be said about them too, because we have spirits and souls and we're human beings as well. So I like that upfrontness that Cuban women have, to where it's like, yeah, I might go walk and talk to a Cuban woman and try to like holla at her. But a Cuban woman, if she finds interest in me, might just come up at me and be like, hey, how are you doing? What's your name? This, and that. And I'm like, yo, I love that. I really love that. And you get the best of both worlds, because look, what if I'm somewhere, I don't know, what if I'm at the bar or whatever I'm eating and I don't see you? We can miss an opportunity. You just come up to me, girl, say what's up. You know what I'm saying? So I can know you exist. Or I'm a man. What if I'm having a bad day that day? You know what I'm saying? What about our feelings? What if I'm having a bad day and I'm like, yo, like, I'm just not going to talk to anybody today because I don't feel like no one wants to listen, right? And you just come up and you say these things, that can mean a lot to men. Look, you can make the love connection. Don't make it hard. Cuban women that are like that, they don't make it hard. It don't have to be that hard. Cuban women know it don't have to be that hard. That's why I'm loving these Cuban women. Another thing I love about Cuban women is their high spirits. There's nothing better than being around a Cuban woman, or a woman in general, that has high spirits and good energy. There's nothing better than that. If any man doesn't like that, well, yo, check his pulse, because there's nothing better than a woman that likes to have fun, that doesn't make things hard. Of course, Cuban women can be spicy, so some situations you're going to get into, yeah, you can get a little rah. Don't ever get that twisted. They're Cuban women. But when everything's going good and they rocking with you, yo, life is good. We're having a good time. We're banging out in the sports car, you know? We're going to the rooftop. We're going to the beach. We're going to get something to eat. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing that I love about Cuban women. Hey, Cuban women, you sick of me yet? Okay, I'm still here. Another thing I love about Cuban women is I love that Cuban women, most of them, love the heat. Because I like sun. I like heat. I can get it's super hot sometimes. I get it. Whatever. We sweat. We're human. Look, at least you don't live on the West Coast where you could actually like pass away from being too hot and it's dry heat and you don't sweat. So sweating is good. It cools your body down. You're actually water cool. And I love a lot of Cuban women because they love the heat. Of course, most of them are from Cuba. And so therefore, they're already accustomed to that. They're not going to be like, I don't want to be out here in the festival. It's too hot. Well, maybe some would, but most that I knew never did that. They were out in the festival all day with me. We was in Cuba and I'm like, yo, I love this. Like, no Cuban woman around me is complaining about the heat. Oh my God, is this heaven? You know what I'm saying? Is this heaven? And I love that. The last thing I love about Cuban women is the diversity, right? Now, you know it's Cuba. So obviously there's a heavy African influence in Cuba, right? You have Afro-Cubans, you have people that are mixed, or there's different terms in South American, Central American, and Caribbean countries, mulatto, right? You have this mixing of different cultures. And so you have a lot of melanated Cuban women, right? Where it's like you can have like light tan, you can have brown skin, you can have dark skin. Look, you can even have really, really light if that's what you're into. You know what I'm saying? You can have it all. And there's a huge African presence in Cuba, right? From the culture to the food to the music. And so that connection, right, between Cuba and the States and Africa and all those connections together, right? It's like, this is a beautiful thing. So the diversity of Cubans is a very amazing thing as well. And, you know, I like the melanin. I mean, you look, no offense to the light-skinned honeys from every part of the world, but, you know, I like that tan to like that dark skin, you know what I'm saying? So look, you ever seen a dark-skinned Cuban, black Cuban? Look, okay. I'm just saying. Look, love the Cuban women. This is my episode for Cuban women. It's all love for you guys, you know what I'm saying? If you like this video, please like, subscribe, turn on the bell notification so you get all my videos. I'm on all social medias, which is Afric Network, which is Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, Facebook, Snapchat, and TikTok. Each one teach one. Always love each other. Always learn from each other. And yo, guys, until next time, yo, peace to all my Cuban women. One love.